We begin the Gemara today towards the bottom, the last line actually, of Ayin Amid Beis. Amar Rab Chama. The Gemara here is discussing the union of Yuchsin, various different levels of Yichus amongst Yidden, and a person that marries a woman that's puzzle, and then the Yichus gets messed up and so on. So the Gemara says, Amar Rab Chama bar Chanina k'shakadosh baruch hu mitayer shvatim. When the Eibishter will come, Lasid Lavai, to be Metayer, the Shvatim, meaning that the Eibishter is going to show their Yichus that they have, who has the good Yichus. Shifta Shalevi Metayer Tchila. The first one that the Eibishter is going to show their pure Yichus will be the Shevet of Levi. As the Pasuk says, Shanema Vayeshev or Vayoshav Mitzaref Metayer Kesef. The Eibishter is going to be Mitzaref and Metayer. He's going to take out the dirt and he's going to purify the silver. V'tir is b'nei Levi. V'zike kaisam k'kesav v'kezav. He's going to purify the shevet of Levi like you purify gold and silver. V'hayu l'Hashem magisha mincha b'tzedakah. And they'll be able to bring the carbon mincha, they'll be able to bring the karbanis of the Eibishter with tzedakah. Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Rabbi Shua ben Levi says, and he gives a different shot for this pasuk here. Kesef mitayr mamzerim. When it says there in the pasuk mitayr kesef, Mutar Kesef actually means that Kesef, money, is what purifies Mamzerim. Because people that are puzzled, how do they end up assimilating or intermarrying into Klal Yisrael? By the money they have. People are looking to marry into their families because of their money. Shenema vayesha vayoshav mitzaref u'mitar Kesef, that their mitayer, their gold and their silver, their money that they have is mitayer them. So here, according to Rabbi Shua ben Levi, he's teaching the word mitayer, not as in the Eibishter is going to show and be mitayer them to bring out the families that have a yichus. On the contrary, he's teaching mitayer that they get integrated into Klal Yisrael through the money that they have. Mai magishe mincha b'tzedakah. What does the conclusion of the pasuk mean when it says that they bring mincha b'tzedakah? Rabbi Yitzchak tzedakah asa kadosh baruch hu in Yisrael. This is the righteousness of the Eibishter that he does with Yidden. Shemishpacha shenitma nitma. A family that was puzzled. But once it got integrated and became part of Klal Yisrael, and it's unknown which family this is, the Eibishter, Lasid Lavai, will not come to identify and single out that family that it's puzzled. Once it was already assimilated into Klal Yisrael, it remains mixed into Klal Yisrael. Now the Gemara goes back to a statement that was mentioned before regarding the Yidden that live in Eretz Yisrael, in contrast to the Yidden that live in Bavel. Which one has a better yichus? So Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Kol Aratzais, all other lands outside Eretz Yisrael, not Bavel, all other places, Isa le'Eretz Yisrael. So they're like a dough, which is a mixture if you compare to Eretz Yisrael. In other words, they have a less of a yichus of Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael, Isa le'Bavel. But Eretz Yisrael, though, doesn't have as good as a yichus like Bavel. Eretz Yisrael is like a dough, like a mixture if you compare to Bavel. So if you remember, the Gemara before said, this is based on the fact that when Ezra came up and he took all Yidden out of Bavel, he took all the psulim out. And he brought them to Eretz Yisrael. He knew that there won't be any chachamim there in Bavel, so he brought all the psulim to Eretz Yisrael. So therefore Bavel remained a place which was very pure. Says the Gemara, but Bimei Rebbe, in the time of Rebbe, Bikshu Lasais Bavel Isel Eretz Yisrael. They wanted to change the status. They wanted to say that no, Bavel now became a place which is like a dough, which is a mixture with psulim if you compare to Eretz Yisrael. And Eretz Yisrael is on a higher level. And this is relevant for when you're making a shidduch, when you want to know who to get married to. You want to look for a place, where should I marry a woman that has good yichus? So it's a person from Bavel marrying someone from Eretz Yisrael. So in Eretz Yisrael you have to be careful. You have to check out the families to see who they are. So in the time of Rebbe, they wanted to switch it. They wanted to say that no, the status changed. That Eretz Yisrael has a better yichus and Bavel has more psulim. So now when they wanted to do this, Amalan Rebbe said, you're putting thorns between my eyes. And the reason is, Rashi says, because Rebbe himself was from a family that originated from Bavel. Rebbe came from Hillel, that came from Bavel, and Hillel came up from Bavel, and he took over the Nesius, the leadership of Klal Yisrael, that was then in the hands of the Bnei Beseira, the children of Beseira. There's a whole story about this in the Gemara and Psachim, and they came over and they came up from Bavel and took over the leadership in Eretz Yisrael. So because Rebbe originally came from Bavel, he didn't want them to change and say that Bavel has less of a good yichus than the people from Eretz Yisrael. And Rebbe said, you don't have to trust me because he's an Agay, he came from Bavel. If you want, you tapli mochem Rab Chanina. Go, Rab Chanina Bar Chama, that is. Go and speak to Rab Chanina Bar Chama about this, and he'll tell you, he'll explain to you what the yichus of Bavel is. Nitful Imam Rab Chanina Bar Chama. So Rab Chanina Bar Chama came to them. Amalem, he said, Kach mukublani mit Rab Yishmael bar Rab Yesi. I have a Kabbalah from Rab Yishmael bar Rab Yesi, meaning you don't have to trust the Rebbe. He came from Bavel, but I have a Kabbalah from Rab Yishmael bar Rab Yesi, which was not from Bavel. Shama mishum aviv, and he said in the name of his father that Kol aratzais isa le'eretz Yisrael. All other lands, if you compare it to Eretz Yisrael, it's like dough, it's a mixture of psulim. And Eretz Yisrael, isa le'Bavel. And Eretz Yisrael is like dough, is a mixture with psulim if you compare it to Bavel. So he's saying, I have the same Kabbalah that Eretz Yisrael is considered to be psulim if you compare it to Bavel. Similar, the Gemara says at a later time, B'meira Pinchas, Big Shulas is Bavel Isa Eretz Yisrael. They also wanted to change the status and consider Bavel to be Isa Do, to be more psulim in contrast to Eretz Yisrael. Amalem Lavadov. So he said to his servants, Kashani Aimish Nei Dvarim. So here he wanted to make sure that they're not going to change this. So he told his servants that would bring him into the Beis Medrash to teach. So he said to them as follows: when I'm going to say the two halachas in Beis Medrash, Beis Medrash today, what you'll do is Toluni ba'arisa verutzu. Put me in a bed and run with me out of the Beis Medrash after I'll say these two halachas. He wanted him to say a statement, and he didn't want anyone to start asking him questions about this and attacking him. So as soon as I finish saying what I'm saying, pick me up and carry me out and run away. So what did he do? So Ki Ayel, that is, when he came into the Beis Medrash, Amal Lahem, Rab Pinchas told them one halacha, and he told them like a certain shocking statement that he wanted them to think about. And what did he say? Ein shchite la'oif min ha'Torah. For any oif, for any of for a rooster, for a chicken, whatever, there's no mitzvah of shchite min ha'Torah. The mitzvah of shchita that it says in the Torah is only for behemoths, chayis, but it doesn't say in the Torah the mitzvah of shchita beferish when it comes to birds. And he didn't say any source for this. Rashi here brings the source. The Gemara says in Chulin, it says in the pasuk v'shafach es damai, and it doesn't ever say in the Torah clearly the union of shchita regarding birds. Oif. Okay, so they heard this, that he said there's no shchita for birds, minat Torah. So then the students that heard the statement from Rab Pinchas said they're sitting and analyzing and trying to figure this out. So they're so immersed in figuring this out. So he then came and said another statement. You should know, Kol aratzos isa le'eretz Yisrael. All lands are isa, are mixture, are dough in the yichos compared to Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael isa leBavel. And Eretz Yisrael is dough, is mixture of psulim if you compare to Bavel. Bavel's on a higher level. He said that statement, and then he was taken out right away. Natlu ba'arisa, they took him out in a bed, and virotzu, and they ran away with him. He didn't want anyone to attack him about this. Now, you have to understand, this is saying such kind of halacha, it's very, very personal. Families have to know to make a shidduch, and these people in Eretz Yisrael here, that they have a mixture of psulim in them more than the people of Bavel, so he didn't want anyone to attack him about this. Rotzu achrov, they ran after him, v'lo yigiyuhu. And they couldn't reach him, that he did to ask him to show them, to prove it to him, and to explain it to them. So, Yashvu Ubatku. So when they heard this statement of Rab Pinchas, they sat down themselves and they started making an interrogation to inspect this matter, to start looking into families, looking into the history of families, the lineage of families. And when they were making this research, they came to a point of danger, because you're starting to uncover certain unknown facts about families, where they come from, what their yichus is, and people are getting very hurt and offended, and it became a matzav of a danger. These families that were very mighty and strong and very powerful, they were very angry about this. Upirshu, so they stopped looking into this. They left it as is. And that's the status that remained, that Eretz Yisrael doesn't have as good as a yichus as Bavel, and they didn't want to look into the matter any further. Rabbi Yechanan said about this, Heichala, the Heichal of the Beis HaMikdash. This is a lashon of a shvua. He says, I can swear in the name of the Heichal of the Beis HaMikdash. B'yadeinu hi. It's really in our hands to come and clarify this matter, to show who's kosher and who's pasul in Eretz Yisrael. But what should I do? There's great people in the generation that were already mixed into these families that don't have good yichus. So therefore, he doesn't want to uncover it. So the Gemara says, Savalok Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Yechanan is saying this because he holds like what Rabbi Yitzchak said. The Rabbi Yitzchak, as we mentioned before, Mishpacha, Shenitma, nitma. A family, once it's already integrated into Klal Yisrael and it's unknown that it's possible, it becomes kosher, part of Klal Yisrael, and we leave it as is. Amar Abaye said this point here, that once it's mixed into Klal Yisrael, we leave it. So Afanan Nami Tanina. We learned this also in a Mishnah, in Idias. Here the Mishnah says that there was a Mishpachas Beis HaTzrifa Hoysa Beva Yarden. There was a family that was called Beis HaTzrifa, and they lived on Ever Yarden, which is on the east side of the Yarden. Verichaka Ben Tzion Bizraya. There was an individual by the name of Ben Tzion. Rashi says he was a prominent individual, and he was a very strong person, and he was merachik this family, Bizraya. He went forcefully and said that this family is not kosher. And really, it wasn't necessarily true. They were kosher. There was another family, Vikirva Ben Tzion, and this individual Ben Tzion was makar of this family and said that they are kosher, Bizraya, and he did this by force. And it also wasn't necessarily true. So it's these kinds of families that you were either merachik or mekarev, and it was done by force, and it's not something that was true, and everybody knows which that Beis HaTzrifa was a kosher family, and everyone knows that this other family is pasul. So such kind of families, Eliyahu ba l'tamei or l'tair. Eliyahu is going to show us who's tamei, who's tair, l'rachik or l'karev, and show who should be distanced from Klal Yisrael, who should be brought close. What does it mean, kagayin elu? The yodin. Kagayin elu means these families that are really known. It's known who's kosher and who's pasul. Aval mishpacha shenitma, but those families that it's unknown b'chlal tas, so then they would just mix into Klal Yisrael nitma. That remains integrated part of Klal Yisrael, and Eliyahu Hanavi is not going to uncover any of those facts when Mashiach comes, and he's going to come and show who has yichus and who not. But once it's mixed into Klal Yisrael, he won't change this. Tana, regarding to this, we also learned Oida Cheres Haisa. There was also another family that was really puzzled. And the Chachamim knew about this, but they didn't want to uncover this. They didn't want to make it known for everyone. But quietly, Chachamim, in their own families, for their own children, it was known, they gave over that this family is pasul, and for their students, they made it known that they shouldn't marry into this family. Once in 7 years, they would give over this information. Another version is that they gave over this information once or twice in 7 years. But they kept it quiet. They didn't want to make it known to everybody about this family to make a big fight about it. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Mistavre, it's logical that Kamandama, like the opinion that says Pamachas b'shavua, that to say like the opinion that only once in 7 years they would uncover this fact. Kedetanya, as we learned in the Braise, if a person says, Hareini Nazir im lo yagale mishpachis, I'll be a Nazir if I'm not going to go ahead and uncover certain facts about the yichus of families. So he's saying this to motivate himself to go ahead and uncover these facts. So the Braisa says, "He a Nazir. Let him rather just be a Nazir. V'lo yigala mishpachas. And let him know he should keep his mouth closed. He shouldn't reveal certain facts about the yichus of family. You keep it quiet as is. Even Eliyahu Hanavi, Lasad Lave, Kidushin Nitma is not going to say anything." Now, in connection to this, that the Gemara just brought here, that there are certain things that you keep quiet. The Gemara goes into a different subject. Amar Rabba Babachana, Amar Rabbi Yechanan, Shem ben Arbaisis. The Abish's name, 4 letters, which is the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei. So, regarding this, the name of the Abish there. So, Chachamim Moisunai Sel Talmideyem Pamachas B'Shavua. The Chachamim would give over to their students once in 7 years of Amrila Pamayim B'Shavua. Some say twice in 7 years. They would give over how you pronounce the name, how it's written properly, and the meaning of this name. It would be given over also, not often. They would keep it something which was quiet. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, regarding this as well, he said, Mistavre Kemandama Pamachas B'Shavua. It's more logical to say that only once in 7 years they would give over about the Abish's name. The Chsiv, because the Pasuk says, Zeh Shmi Lo'olam. The Abish says about his name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, this is my name forever. But Le'elem Ksiv, or La'alam Ksiv, it's read without a Vav. La'alam means that it's something that you have to conceal. So therefore, it's mistavet to say that it was only once in 7 years that they gave this over. Rave Saval Midrashe B'Pirke. Rave wanted to darshan in the drasha that he said, to speak about Hashem Yud Kei Vav Kei, how it's written, how it's pronounced, and so on. But there was an older individual there that told him he shouldn't, because La'alim Ksiv. We read the pasuk La'alim that you have to conceal it. Rabbi Vina asked, Ksiv, the pasuk says, Zeh Shmi. This the Eibishter says, this is my name. Uksiv, and then the pasuk says, Ze zichri. This is how you remember me or mention me. So it says twice, Ze. Why is it saying? Why doesn't it just say Ze shmi v'zichri? What's the two things that it says Ze and Ze? Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The answer is the Eibishter says, Loi kisha ani nichtav ani nikra. That today, Bisman Hazeh, not the way the Eibishter's name is written. It's written in the Torah. It's written Yud Kei Vav Kei, but that's not how we pronounce the Eibishter's name. Nichtav ani b'Yud Kei. The Eibishter's name is written Yud Kei Vav Kei. But v'nikra, we pronounce the Eibishter's name ba'Aleph Daled, which is Aleph Daled Nun Yud. That's the way we say it. That's Bisman Hazeh. But when Mashiach comes, then we're going to pronounce and say the Eibishter's name Yud Kei Vav Kei just like it's written. Right? This is the idea that Chassidus speaks about, that the way the Eibishter's name is written is the true level of a lakos, which is behelim, which can't be pronounced. So Bisman Hazeh, the world is not a keli for this. When Mashiach comes, then the world will be a keli for the true revelation of the Eibishter, the true reality of lakos, the way it is from the Eibishter's perspective. So then it'll be fully revealed, and we'll say the Eibishter's name Yud Kei Vav Kei the way it is. Tana Rabbanon, in connection to the Eibishter's name, we learned in another brayse that Barishayna in the beginning, Shem ben Shtei Mesreisius, the Eibishter's name, which is made up of 12 letters. And Rashi here says that it's unknown what this name is. There's different discussions about this in Mefarshim, what this name is. Some say that it's the name Yud Kei Vav Kei 3 times. Some say it's Kisvei Arizal. I saw brought that either it refers to Yud Kei Vav Kei, Aleph Daled Nun Yud, and the third name is Shem Eke, Aleph Hey Yud Hey. Then the Shem of the Eibishter that's brought in Parsha Shmos. So you have these 3 names. So how exactly it's written, the combination of the letters, they would give over to anybody to know what this name of 12 letters of the Eibishter is. But Misharabu Hapritzim, when those that were very not careful about it and they would use this name in not in times that they're supposed to, it was only given over to those modest and the ones that were the tzaddikim amongst the kainim. And why? Why to the Kainim? Because when they would bench the Yidden with Birchas Kainim, they would say the Eibishter's name of 12 letters. And those tznuim amongst the Kainim, they would say this name of 12 letters, while there are other Kainim that didn't know this name, and they would sing. When they would bench the Yidden in Birchas Kainim, they would say this name of the Eibishter sort of under their breath, that it shouldn't be heard by everybody. Tanya, so we learned in the Braise, Amar Rab Tarfon. Rab Tarfon said, Rab Tarfon was a Kayan. Pa'amachas alisi acharachi imi leduchen. One time I went after my uncle, his mother's brother. So he was going up to the duchen, which is a platform to go and duchen, which is to bench the Yidden with Birchas Kayanim, and he was also a Kayan, so we went together. V'hiteisi ozni etzel Kayan Gadol, and then I went close enough, and I was able to listen to the Kayan Gadol. I was able to hear how he quietly, under his breath, says the name of 12 letters of the Eibishter when he benches together with the singing of the other Kayanim. What's the... By Kayanim in the Beis Hamikdash, if the Kayan then said the Shem of... it doesn't stay that here. It says it by Birchas Kayanim. Shem HaMefeirish, the Shem HaMefeirish, which name is it? Not sure. Here the Gemara doesn't bring that. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, Shem ben Arbaim Mishtayim Oisius. There's the Eibishter's name, which is made up of 42 letters. And Rashi also says about this that we don't know what this is. It's also brought in Mefarshim different discussions about what it is. Some say it's if you count the letters from Bereshis Bara until where it says in the pasuk Vavoyu, Toyu Vavoyu, that's 42 letters. Those are the letters that make up this name of the Eibishter, but we don't know exactly how it's written, the Seder, and so on. So this letter, of this name that is of the Eibishter, 42 letters. We only give it over and teach it to someone that's modest, v'onov, and he's humble, v'oimid b'chatzi yamav, he has to be already half of his life, at least 35 years old, that is. Ve'inu kayis, never gets angry. Ve'inu mishtaker, doesn't get drunk. Ve'inu maimed al midaisov, he doesn't hold a grudge against someone. And anyone that knows this name, and he's careful with it, he keeps it to himself, and in purity, he's beloved by the Eibishter above, and he's endeared below, and his fear will be upon all people, and he inherits 2 worlds, this world and the world to come. Okay, now going back to the halachas of Psulim. Amar Shmuel Mishmei de Saba. Shmuel said in the name of an older individual, Bavel b'cheskas ksheira imedes, B'chlal and Bavel. Whenever you want to marry into a family of Bavel, you should know that the families in Bavel have a presumptive status of being kosher. Unless you know exactly what psul there was in this family. In all other countries outside of Eretz Yisrael and outside of Bavel, you should know that a family has a presumptive status of being pasul. Unless you could get to the bottom of it and see how this family does have a good yichus in their kosher. Eretz Yisrael, what's with Eretz Yisrael? Muchzik lepasul, pasul. Those families that there's a status that they're pasul, so you know they're pasul. Muchzik lekosher, those families that have a status that you know that they're kosher. Those families are kosher. So the Gemara clarifies this. This seems to be a contradiction here regarding what we're saying in the families of Eretz Yisrael. Aren't you contradicting yourself here? Amrit, on one hand, you're saying muchzik lepasul, pasul. Those families that have a status of being pasul, so they are pasul in Eretz Yisrael. Now, what does that mean? Hastam kosher. That means that other families, stam families that have no status at all, we could assume are kosher. But Tani, then you're telling me muchzik lekosher kosher, meaning families that have a clear status of being kosher, we could assume are kosher. Stam, so that means that stam families that we don't know about them anything, pasul. We'll have to assume that they're pasul. So what's the story with stam families in Eretz Yisrael? So you answer the name of Rav, lo kasher. It's not a contradiction. It depends what this is relevant for. Kan la siya yisha. Here we're talking about lachatchila. If you want to go and marry a woman from Eretz Yisrael, so over here we're saying that only if there's a status of kosher, then it's kosher. Otherwise, you should assume that families are pasul. So lachatchila, you should go and make an interrogation regarding a stam family. Kan la haitzi yisha. But over here, once you already married a family from Eretz Yisrael and you're becoming concerned that maybe they don't have a good yichus, over here we're saying no, you're not going to have to, don't be mitzi this wife, only a family that has a status of psul, then you're mitzi. Otherwise, once you're married, b'diyeved, you keep it as is and we accept the status that mistam their kosher. Rav Yosef said, Kol shesichasei b'bavel, anybody, or kibavel that is, the Bach says, anybody, even in Eretz Yisrael, that his language, the way he speaks is the language that people speak in Bavel, I guess Aramaic, Masiyan la yisha. So you could marry a wife from there, from such a family, because we know that the people that came from Bavel have a better status of kashrus. But for Ha'idne, he says, but now though, the Iker Amoy, there are those people that they know this, and therefore they use this language. There's a trickery here. They go and use this language of Bavel in order to try to appear as being kosher, chayshina. So we're concerned, and the fact that they speak Aramaic is not going to improve anything. Says the Gemara regarding this, Zeiri have a kamishtamit minei de Rabbi Yechanan. Zeiri would try to avoid Rabbi Yechanan. He was a student, but he tried to avoid him. Rabbi Yechanan wanted Zeiri to marry his daughter. Now, Rabbi Yechanan was from Eretz Yisrael, and Zeiri came from Bavel. So Zeiri came from Bavel. He has more of a status of kashrus than the daughter of Rabbi Yechanan, which is from Eretz Yisrael. So he would avoid Rabbi Yechanan. He didn't want to marry his daughter. Once it happened, they came, they were going on the way together, and they came to this pool of water. So Rabbi Yechanan Zeiri took Rabbi Yechanan on his shoulders, and he took him through the water. So Rabbi Yechanan tells Zeiri, look, the Torah that I teach you is kosher, is good. He was, like I said, he was a student. But Benatan loy kosher, my daughter is not kosher, you don't want to marry my daughter. So Zeiri said to him, or actually Rabbi Yechanan continues and explains to Zeiri, my daitech, what is your thinking? Why are you avoiding me? Why don't you want to marry my daughter? If you're going to say, is it based on what we learned in our Mishnah? The 10 yuchsin that came out of Bavel, and it said in our Mishnah that Ezra, as we learned before, Ezra brought with him a bunch of psulim to Eretz Yisrael. So therefore Eretz Yisrael is not as good as Bavel. And it said in the Mishnah, Kayani, Levi, the Kayanim and Leviim, and then all the other psulim that also came to Eretz Yisrael. So therefore you think that Bavel, you're coming from Bavel, so you're more pure than my daughter. So Rabbi Yechanan said, no, it's not so. Atu, Kayani, Levi, Yisraeli, Kulu, Sliki. When it says in our Mishnah that together with Ezra came the families of Kaynim, Levi, and Yisraelim, does that mean that they all came to Eretz Yisrael? None of them were left in Bavel? No, some of them stayed in Bavel as well. by the Kainim and Leviim Yisraelim. So therefore Rabbi Yochanan continued and said, Ki heiche de shtayer mahani, just like regarding the Kainim and Leviim Yisraelim, some came with Ezra to Eretz Yisrael, some stayed in Bavel. So shtayer nami mahani, the continuation of the Mishnah, where it talks about the psulim that came to Eretz Yisrael, some came to Eretz Yisrael, but some remained in Bavel as well. So Rabbi Yochanan is telling Zairi that you come from Bavel, it's not any more of miyuchas, not better lineage in Bavel than there is in Eretz Yisrael. But the Gemara says the pshat that Rabbi Yochanan is saying is not true, because ishtamite ha damer Rabbi Elazar. He forgot or he didn't know this that Rabbi Elazar said. What did Rabbi Elazar say? As we learned before already, le'ala Ezra mi Bavel. Ezra did not go up from Bavel. He cleaned out all the psulim. He made sure that there should be no psulim left over there. He didn't want them to get mixed in without anybody knowing who they are. And Vala, only then he came up. So therefore Ziri was right that he was avoiding Rabbi Yechanan's daughter, not to marry him, that he was from Eretz Yisrael.
What about his Taita?
Taita is Taita. Taita you could learn. Sagt the Gemara weiter, another case, Ula ikla lepumpedise. Ula came to Pumpedise, which is in Bavel, Lebeit Rav Yehuda, and he comes to Rav Yehuda. Chazye le Rav Yitzchak Berei, he sees Rav Yitzchak, the son of Rav Yehuda, Berei de Rav Yehuda, the gadol, that he's already older, V'lei Nasiv, and he didn't get married. So Amalei, he says to Rav Yehuda, my time le kamansav le mar itzei le Berei. Why aren't you marrying your son to a wife? What's going on here? He's older already. Amalei, so he says to Ula, do I know from where to find him a wife? Could I find a wife that has a good yichus? He didn't want to marry him off to anyone. So Ula says to Rav Yehuda, you think that me and you, we know exactly what our yichus is? Could we know generations before what happened? Perhaps we can say that we come from these. We come from a lineage from this that it says in Eicha, what happened by the time of the Churban, Nashim b'tzia in Inu, women in Tzia and Yerushalayim were afflicted, Besulais body Yehuda, and the girls in the cities of Yehuda, they were afflicted. The Goyim took advantage of the Yidden. Now, if you'll argue and say that maybe even if we are descendants from those women that could have given birth after they had a relation with Goyim, but maybe you'll argue and say that we're still kosher. We're still kosher to come into Klal Yisrael. Why? Because we already learned before, Oived kechavim ve'eved habal bas Yisrael, a guy or Eved Kanani that has a relation with a Yid, havlat kosher. The child that's born is kosher. So therefore, that doesn't mess up our yichus. But still, he said, there's another pasuk that says something else. Vidilme, perhaps mehanoch, we come from those the chsivu that it says in the pasuk hashaychvim al mitais shein, those that sleep on ivory beds, esruchem al yisaisam, and it's sruchim, it's defiled on their beds. Now, what is this referring to? So there's two pshatim here in this what this pasuk is coming to say. Rabbi Yisrael Rab Chanina touched this pasuk and said, Elu b'nei Adam. This refers to people that they relieve themselves by their beds, undressed, and they don't go to a place to the bathroom to relieve themselves. Talking about in those times where you had to go a far distance outside the house to relieve themselves. Over here, it's saying that they do this, and this is inappropriate, of course. That's the pshat that Rabbi Yossi said. Now, Umegadav ba Rabavo did not, he cursed, he didn't accept his pshat, and he said, this can't be the pshat of the pasuk. Because ihachi, if so, the pasuk there continues later and says, Hainu d'chsif, the pasuk says that because of this behavior, l'chein ato yiglu b'roish goylem, therefore they're going to go ahead of everyone else into Golus. Mishum de mashtinim mayim b'fnei mitiseim arumim yiglu b'roish goylem, because they do this, that they relieve themselves undressed by their bed, therefore they should go ahead of everyone else into Golus, even if this is inappropriate, but it's not enough of a reason that they should be exiled for this. Rabavo said, you know what the pshat of this pasuk is? Elu b'nei Adam sha'ichlin v'shaisim zem zeh. This refers to people that eat and drink with one another, and then umadbikim mitaseim zu b'zu, they attach their beds to one another, umachlifin v'shaseim zeh lezeh, and they switch their wives with one another, umasrichin arisaisam b'shichva zera, and the file of the bed, the smell is from shichva zera, from the fact that sheina shalahem, which is not from them. So this is what happened in a certain time period of Klal Yisrael, and therefore Ula is telling Rabbi Yehuda, how do you know that me and you don't come from generations before where this happened? So we don't even know our own yichus for sure. So Amalei, so he tells Zule, so Heichin Navad, what should we do? So if I want to marry my son to a girl that I know has good yichus, how could I have a simon that there's good yichus here? Amalei, Ula tells him, Zil basashtikusa. Go to a family that's more quiet. When you see a family that's more quiet, that's a sign of good yichus. Kiha, the Batki b'nei Marava, this was also by the people in Marava, which refers to Eretz Yisrael. How would they inspect to see people in Eretz Yisrael to know that they have good yichus? Kiminsi beitrei b'hadi adadi, when there were two families or two people that had a fight with one another, Chazi haiminai the kadam v'shasik. They would look to see which one is going to give in and be quiet before the other one. That's a sign that they have a better yichus. The family that fights more is showing that because they don't have a good yichus, so therefore they're fighting and they're not sure about their yichus. But the family that's quiet about themselves, they can be quiet because they know they have a good yichus. They knew that was a sign to them to know that this has a good yichus. Amar Rav also said, Shtikusei the Bavel, those that are quiet in Bavel, Haini Yechusa, that's a sign for yichus. So the Gemara asks on this, did Rav actually say this? Eini, is this true? Va'ikla Rav lebei bar shafi chala. Rav came to this place of Bei bar shafi chala, or another girsa his lebei shichla, ubadak puhu, and he inspected over there to see which families are kosher and which not. Maila bichsusa. Don't you think that he went and was baidik the lineage to see the yichus? He wasn't necessarily baidik to see which families are quiet and which not. So the Gemara says, not loy bishtikusa. Rav was actually baidik this. He had no way of being baidik the yichus generations before, but he was baidik to see which families are more quiet. Hachi ka'amaluhu. Beduku, go and inspect and see ishaski, iloy shaski. See which families are more quiet and don't fight as much. So those families, they have a better yichus. Omer Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav as well, Imre Isa, Shnei b'nei Yodim shemizgarim zeh b'zeh. When you see two people that are fighting with one another, Shemetz psul yesh b'echad mehem. There has to be a psul in one of them. So therefore, Menashamayim, the Eibusher doesn't want the one that's kosher to get married to the one that's pasul. So therefore, the Eibusher causes that they should fight with one another. So Shemetz, we're holding over here. Shemetz psul yesh b'echad mehem ve'eim anicha nois lidavik echad b'chaveiroi. And therefore, the Eibusher doesn't allow one to marry to the other. Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Rabbi Shua ben Levi said, "Amar Isa shtei mishpachis hamizgaris ubezu." You see two families that are fighting with one another. Same thing. We know that shemetz psul yesh ba'achas man. There has to be some kind of a psul in one of these families. So therefore, when Hashemayim, the Eibush is bringing them to fight with one another, so the kosher family should not end up marrying a pasula family. Amar Rav Papa Saba mishmei de Rav. Rav Papa Saba, he said in the name of Rav, Bavel Bria. Bavel is healthy. This is all an expression that's being used regarding yichus, meaning Bavel has very good yichus, healthy. Mishain, Misa. The place Mishain is death, meaning over there they're all mamzerim. They don't have any good yichus at all, like death. Madai Chayla. Madai is a place which is sick. Sick means that most of them are kosher, but there are some that are apostle there. Elam Geiseses. Elam is Geiseses, which is a person that's deathly ill and he's about to die. And the Gemara explains, Ma ben chaylin legeisesin, what's the difference between the expression of saying that they're sick or those that are deathly ill, they're geises. Reiv chaylin lechayim, most people that are sick recover and live. So that's an expression being used that most people there are kosher. And reiv geisesin lemisa, most people that are geisesim are deathly ill, die. So that means that the people that are in Elam, most of them are not kosher. Now here, the Gemara explains regarding Bavel. The whole Gemara here keeps on saying that Bavel is a place that we have more of a yichus, that people are kosher. What are the boundaries of Bavel in order to know where people are kosher? Ad heichani Bavel. So till where is Bavel? Okay, so we're going to try to learn and understand this Gemara without having a map and try to imagine this in your mind. So Bavel is on the north of Eretz Yisrael. And now on the east and on the west of Bavel, Mizrach and Ma'ariv, there are two rivers. On the east of Bavel, there's Nahar Chidekel. And on the west of Bavel is Nahar Pros. So those are on the two sides of Bavel. There are two rivers that flow coming down from Tzafon to Darim. Those are the borders on the east and on the west of Bavel. So now, that's how Rashi sets up this Gemara. That's the first thing you have to know here. And then, based on that, the Gemara comes and gives us the boundaries of Bavel. So Rav said ad Nahar Azak, that the border of Bavel goes until Nahar Azak. Now this Nahar Azak is on the I think this is on the east side, on the Mizrach of Chidekel. So like I said, Chidekel is the border of Bavel. So but what Rav was saying though is, if you want to go further east beyond the Chidekel, until where will Bavel extend itself? It goes until another river which was called Nahar Azak. Shmuel says it extends even further. Ad Nahar Yoyani. It goes down till Nahar Yoyani, further east, past the Chidekel. That's regarding the east of Bavel. Now, Le'el, B'Diglas, when you go to the top of the Diglas is the Chidekel. Diglas is in Aramaic, but this is the Chidekel. So as I mentioned, the Chidekel is on the east side of Bavel, and the Chidekel flows from from south to north. That is, again, Bavel is on the north of Eretz Yisrael, and the Chidekel, which is on the east side of Bavel, flows from the south, where Eretz Yisrael is, down to the north. So now Le'el B'Diglas, if you go to the top of the Chidekel, which is on the south east of Bavel, Ad Heicha, until how far could you go, and it'll still be Bavel there. Rav Oma ad Bagda v'Avna, until Bagda v'Avna, which is a name of two places near each other. Shmuel Oma, Shmuel says you go further, ad Moishcheni. You can go up all the way to Moishcheni, and that's still Bavel. And v'loy Moishcheni b'chlal. Now the Gemara understands that means that Moishcheni is not part of Bavel. But the Gemara asks him that, could you say that Moishcheni is not part of Bavel? V'ha'oma Rab Chiya bar Abba Oma Shmuel Moishcheni arehi k'goyla. Moishcheni is part of the Galus, part of the diaspora, the Yidden that lived in Bavel regarding lineage. So we see that Moishcheni is part of Bavel. Ella, the Gemara says, ad Moishcheni u'Moishcheni b'chlal. Moishcheni is part of Bavel. Gemara goes further now. Letachtis b'Diglas ad heicha. Again, the Chidekel River, it flows down, it goes down to Tzafim. So when you come to the bottom of the river of the Chidekel, how far down past the river is Bavel? There's Bavel extendu down going down Tzafim to north. Amar Rav Shmuel ad Apamye Tato, until the second Apamye. So the Gemara says Tarti Apamye Havyan. The reason he's saying the lower Apamye is because there were two places that had the same name, Apamya. Chad Elisa, one was further up. Chad Tatiyasa, one was further down. Chad Geshere, the one that was further up, was one of them was kosher. Chad Psula, and another one was pasul. Or the one that was further down was the one that was kosher. Obein Chad Lachada, between one and another parsa, there was a distance of one parsa. The kakapti adadi, and they were particular with one another. They didn't share anything with each other. They didn't want to have to do anything with each other, because one was kosher and one was pasul. Even a flame of fire, they wouldn't lend to one another. Where am I holding over here? V'simonach, that is. Sorry, v'simonach. What is the simon for this? The psulta, the one that's pasul, ha the mishtoi meishonis. The one that speaks the language of Meshon, which is the Gemara mentioned before. Meshon, everybody's pasul there. So the one that speaks in the language of Meshon, we know that's the Apamya, which is pasul. Okay, this is all the places in relation to the Chidekel, which is on the east of Bavel. Now, the Nahar Peras, which is on the west of Bavel, on Mairev. Le'el be'Peras, when you go to the top of Nahar Peras, which is all the way up at the south of Bavel. Ad Hecha, how far does Bavel extend there? Ravama ad Akra de Tulbakni. It goes up until this place. Shmuel says it goes further. Ad Gishra de Bei Peras, until the bridge that crosses over the Peras, which is all the way further up. Rabbi Yechanan says Ad Mavra de Gizma, until the place where you go over by Gizma. So the Gemara says about this, Layet Abaye v'teimer Rav Yosef ad Rav. Either Abaye or Rav Yosef cursed and said that what Rav said about how far up Bavel extends is not true. Rav said it extends all the way up to Akra de Tulbakni. He says no, it doesn't go that far. So the Gemara says, what does that mean? Layet ad Rav Layet. They disagreed with Rav, but ad Shmuel Loy Layet. They didn't curse what Shmuel said. Shmuel actually extended it further. Shmuel said it goes up further south even more than Rav. So why does it say that they did not disagree with Shmuel? Ella the Gemara says, Layet ad Rav, they disagreed with Rav, v'kol shekain ad Shmuel, and they for sure disagreed with what Shmuel said. V'bay Seime, or the Gemara says, what's the siman Shmuel gave? Shmuel gave a siman of a place where there's a bridge, that the location of that bridge changed. They cursed what Rav said because Rav went further than Shmuel, extending Bavel. According to Shmuel, the bridge is really lower down. Today we see that this bridge over the Peros goes further up. The Gishra, the Bei Peros, Letatoi Have, the bridge by Peros was further down in the time of Shmuel. Now the Persians took that bridge and they relocated it higher up, but really the bridge was further down. Okay, now this is one more thing over here regarding the border of Bavel. Before the beginning, the Gemara brought regarding the Chidekel, which is on the east of Bavel, and what's the border further east from the Chidekel. Now the Gemara here discusses regarding the Peras, which is on the west of Bavel. Where's the border of Bavel past the Peras further west? Ad Heichan, until where is the border of, on the other side of the Peras, when you go further east? Amalei, so he said to him, my daitech, why are you asking about this? Mishum Biram. You're asking me because of the city of Biram, which is on the other side of the Peras. You want to know if it's part of Bavel. So he said, Miyachsi, the Pumpedisa, mi Biram Nasvi. The very the best families with the best lineage of Pumpedisa, who would they marry? They would marry women from the city of Biram, which is on the east of the Peras River. So that's still part of Bavel. That's how far Bavel extends.